Hey there, friends. If you're lucky enough to be gardening in Massachusetts, May is when the real growth starts to happen. But before we dig in, there's something really important that you need to know. Massachusetts spans USDA hardiness zones 5A through 7A, and what that means is basically what you can plant depends on where you live. Gardens in zone 5A typically have about 165 frost-free growing days, while those in 7A, more towards the east, southeast of Massachusetts, have about 190. Those extra 30 days, it's a whole month, can make the difference between harvesting ripe, beautiful tomatoes or getting stuck with green ones right before the first frosts in fall. I'll show you a map now. Take a second to find your city or your town and remember your zone. If you're in zone 5 or 5A, keep an extra close eye on the weather. You're more likely to get a surprise cold snap in May than gardeners farther southeast. Keep all that in mind as we break down the best crops to plant this month. And hey, if this video gets 200 likes, I'll know that you want more Massachusetts-specific gardening videos, so don't forget to hit that like button. And subscribe if you're new. There's a lot you can get in the ground right now, so let's dive in. Now, if you remember last month, we spent a lot of time talking about cool weather crops. That season has officially passed us by, and from here on out, we'll be focusing on warm weather crops that will thrive as the days get longer and the soil heats up. You'll likely have a few more weeks to enjoy the cool weather crops that you've already planted, but the window for sowing new ones is over. Once the warmth settles in, those plants will get triggered to bolt, and there's no stopping them once they start bolting. Let's kick things off with some cooler tolerant crops that you can still plant in early May. Radishes, beetroot, parsnips, and carrots. These root crops are still fair game for direct sowing or transplanting early in the month. Plant them straight into the ground where they'll grow or into 16-cell trays. Radish especially are lightning fast. You could be harvesting in 25 days. Carrots and parsnips always direct sow those. They don't do well for transplanting because they depend on a taproot. And if the taproot is disturbed, as in transplanting from a 16-cell into the ground, they get all wonky and weird-shaped carrots. Some are comical, but oftentimes it's nice to just have beautiful straight root carrots. If you're growing soft neck garlic, you might be able to sneak your carrot seeds between the garlic rows for a double harvest. I sowed my carrots a few weeks ago and plan to start another round in just a couple of weeks. If you like straight root carrots, these are best to be sown directly. Keep the soil moist and do your best to be patient. Spring onions and lettuce. If you started these indoors, now's the time to harden them off and transplant them outside. If you didn't, no worries. You can still direct sow or start in cells inside. Instead of planting dozens all at once, I recommend sowing 4 or 5 plants every 2 weeks. That way you'll have a steady, manageable harvest of fresh greens all season long. These can be sown in a nursery tray and pricked out into 3 or 4 into a cell and then thinned later. Celery. Celery will still have plenty of time to grow if you start it early this month. Just remember, celery seeds are a little different. They need light to germinate, so don't bury them. Just press them gently into the surface of the seed starting mix that you're using. Autumn cabbage and Brussels sprouts and kale. It might seem early to think about fall crops, but trust me, if you want a strong harvest of Brussels sprouts and autumn cabbage, May is the perfect time to get them started. These plants need a long growing season, and an early start gives you the best chance for a successful harvest. I find that these do best if sown in 6 or 72 cell trays. Parsley and basil. Parsley is a slow starter, so sow it now to enjoy through the summer. Because of their long start, I find it best to start these in a nursery tray and then prick them out into their own cells once they emerge. Basil, on the other hand, loves warmth. Treat it like your tomatoes and peppers. Wait to plant it outdoors until nighttime temperatures are consistently above 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Now let's shift into the summer superstars. By mid-May, it's time to lean fully into summer crops. This is where the real garden takeover begins. No more shuttling plants in and out of the house daily. Zucchini, squash, and pumpkin. These plants need the heat. Sow them directly into the garden once your soil is warm, or start them in pots a few weeks earlier if you want a head start. They grow fast, so no stress if you're getting them in a little later in May. I don't bother starting these in cells, but you certainly can. Just a heads up, these plants can get out of control very easily, and they can steal all available nutrients and take over your garden. Look at this mess from last year. To keep things more manageable, I'm planting my squash in a separate patch away from my main beds this year. If you do the same, it'll save you a lot of headaches come July. Corn. Corn needs warm soil to sprout, so make sure the ground has heated up before sowing. I recommend planting it directly where you want it to grow. Starting them indoors isn't necessary, although I'm trying that approach this year. Some say that corn doesn't transplant well. I'm testing that out. Plant corn in blocks, not long rows, to improve pollination. There is some debate here, but block planting sounds logical to me, and I'll be sticking with that approach. If you're like me, growing both sweet corn and popping corn this season, be sure to stagger your sowings by a few weeks. You don't want them maturing at the same time. Otherwise, you'll end up with not so sweet corn that's not good for popping either. Cucumbers. You can start cucumbers indoors now for transplanting later, or direct sow them once your frost date has passed. They love rich, loose soils and steady watering. Cucumbers, like tomatoes, are natural climbers. To control their growth, I run a simple wire along a row and tie strings from the wire down to the stakes, and then gently wrap the vines around the strings as they grow. My system isn't the strongest rig you'll see on YouTube, but it gets the job done. Every plant has its own tips and tricks, and I can't cover all of those in this video. But if you want to see how I care for my plants week by week, check out my garden update playlist. Whenever you're watching this, there's a new one coming out in just a couple of days. French beans and runner beans. These heat lovers thrive once the nights warm up. Direct sow them once you're safely past your last frost date. They'll need trellises or poles to climb, so have your support system ready before they take off. There's also another way that you can do this without setting up a trellis, and we'll talk about that in just a few moments. Tomatoes and peppers. If you're in a cooler zone and haven't started these yet, don't worry. You may still have time. Get them going indoors today. Those of you in warmer zones, thanks to your longer growing season, you will do just fine sowing at any time. If you already have seedlings, it's almost time to start hardening them off and moving them outside. Just make sure that your nighttime temps are consistently above 50 for the best results. The Three Sisters method. If you want to try something both traditional and highly effective, I highly recommend the Three Sisters method. This is an ancient planting technique used by the Native American communities for centuries, and it's still just as brilliant today. And here's how it works. Corn is planted first. As it grows, it becomes a natural pole or trellis for the beans to climb. Beans are planted next, right alongside the corn. As they climb, they help anchor the corn and keep it steady during strong winds. Plus, the beans actually pull nitrogen from the air and put it into the soil, feeding both themselves and their neighbors. Squash is the final sister in this Three Sisters method. It's planted around the base of the corn and the beans, and as the squash vines spread, their big broad leaves shade the soil, keeping it cool and moist while crowding out the weeds. It also provides thorns, keeping small critters away from your beans and your corn. It's a complete ecosystem all in one patch of soil. Each plant is helping the others to thrive. If you want to give it a shot this year, now's the perfect time to get started. Plant your corn first and wait until the stalks are about 6 inches tall before adding your beans. That way, the beans will have a strong enough support to climb. Then, tuck your squash plants around the edges of the bed. Make sure you leave enough space. The squash can spread out fast and wide, so you don't want your bed to be too crowded too soon. The Three Sisters method isn't just efficient, it's also a really satisfying way to garden. You'll see the plants supporting each other in real time, and it feels like you're carrying on a time-honored tradition. Here's a quick reminder about frost. Your zone's last frost date is your best guide, but Mother Nature loves surprises. I recommend checking your local 7-day forecast every morning before moving warm weather crops outside. I usually trust forecasts up to about 3 or 4 days, but anything beyond that is just a guess. If you want to gamble a little, it can be a big payoff, but keep some row covers or buckets handy to protect your plants just in case. And trust me, there's nothing worse than losing your baby squash plants because you got a little too excited. I've been there and I've done that. Here's a few final tips. Zucchini, pumpkins, and cucumbers, beans, they all grow fast, and don't worry if you're starting now. Lettuce, celery, and parsley will appreciate a little bit of shade later on in the summer, so plant accordingly. And if you're still working with indoor starts, keep your seedlings strong by brushing your hand over them gently each day to stimulate wind, to toughen them up for outside, or get a simple oscillating fan. Thanks for watching. I'm happy you found the channel, and if you want to see more state-specific gardening videos, make sure to like and subscribe and let me know in the comments. Let me know that you're enjoying these and want to see more of them. Remember, if we hit 200 likes on this video, I'll take that as a clear sign to make even more state-specific gardening guides. If you want to see how my plants are growing week by week, be sure to check out my new weekly garden update series. There's always a fresh one right around the corner.